You spent countless hours in the garage with your dad. Now investing in that old car and working on it with your son reminds you of him. And his legacy lives on. Fund your passion with a low-interest home equity line of credit from Bank of Blue Valley.
Oh, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing good. My laptop's sitting on a pillow, and I'm thinking, when I think of our audience, like when they do Zoom meetings, like we all have these crazy concoctions of how we put our computer together and the setup. But now I hear there are Zoom theme parties that kids have where they wear the dressed up top, but sweats on the bottom.
It's one of the Spirit Day days now. Yeah, they get all dressed up on top and then they wear their PJ bottoms. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
It's big. It's big.
How was your weekend?
It was good. It was good. So fall time, I have toddlers, so it's the classic. Everyone tells you in parenting, there's really, really great moments, and then there's really, really meltdown moments. So they balance each other out. How was your weekend, and how was your week?
Okay, I had the most fun weekend. I'm going to tell you a story real quick, and I haven't told you. Scott and I usually talk a lot offline. I haven't told you the story because I wanted to tell it to you here. Okay. So on Sunday, there was a couple events that I got asked to go to. So the first was Gumbo Fest, which was a blast. Shanita, who's been on our show a couple times, she's in my same office building down at 2000 Vine. She put on Gumbo Fest, and it was a total like rock star event for the first year. Lula's down in the Crossroads won. They had such great gumbo, but all of them are really good gumbo. So that was fun. And I didn't think I was going to be able to make it to Deborah Rourke, who's also been on our show. She called and said, could you just stop by my event? And I said, I don't know if I'll have time, but I will try. So I had some time. So I was able to go to her event, and she had this fabulous women's event, and she had brought in a motivational speaker for that. And so I kind of stuck around. Deborah said, do you want to go to dinner with us? Well, this motivational speaker had like an online friend that lived in Kansas City. So she brought this friend over. And I always just think it's so funny because I feel like you and I know everything about business in Kansas City. And then you meet someone and you're like, I had no idea that that was a business. So this woman, who, by the way, is one of the coolest people I've ever seen, right? Like she had a lip ring and she had all these tattoos, like really cool. She gets on this panel. That's why she was there to speak. And she owns 25 disabled 24-hour caretake homes in Kansas City. So, and she was very smart when she started doing it. She bought all the real estate. So she bought each home and then owns the caretaking company. So, I mean, she has this huge business. And I was like, you got to come on Drinks with Leaders. And then I go to dinner with these women, and I thought they were really cool. It was just kind of what I need, you know, everything I've like with my broken leg and my grandpa dying and everything, you know, that's been going on. They were just like really motivational. Right. So I go to dinner, and one of them goes, hey, I'm going to go live real quick. Are you okay? And the other one goes, yeah, I'll jump in your live. Well, this is our live, right? We've got awesome people watching. Let us know where you're watching from, Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. But these, I go, where are you guys going live on? Scott, one of them had 1 million followers on TikTok, and the other one had 500,000 followers on TikTok. They had hundreds of thousands on Instagram, and they just go live while we're at dinner, and they're just talking. And I was like, Scott and I got to learn that. We got to learn that life.
You're probably, that's like me at a private equity conference.
Oh, yeah.
I was out at social media. I'm like, you know,
I was
like you're in your element.
Because it was so interesting, because when a lot of times when we do live, there's like so much prep because I do it on the business side, right? Where they were doing it on the personal side. And then it was really interesting to me because the fabulous business owner, she knows their name. She keeps those two worlds totally separate, which is something I don't do. So yeah, I was totally geeking out. But we're going to have her on the show soon.
Exactly. And it's because of Bank of Blue Valley and Burns and McDonnell, who employ thousands of people throughout the metropolitan. Erin wearing her amazing shirt. We do a CEO live with us about once a month. And then we have a panel of 4 news stories like Aaron just met this weekend. So, without any further ado, it's like that music just gets me going every Tuesday. Aaron hates it. And I tell you what, let's go to the frat bar and throw up 90s music.
One more reminder. I can see there's a bunch of people watching. I don't know why you guys are like this. I need you to get on here and telling me.
It's nice outside.
No, but they're watching. I need you to tell me where you're watching. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and tell us who you are. There's great networking that happened over here in the comments. All right, here we go. It's the worst. The absolute worst. All right. Our first guest today is King Amfo.
Hey, y'all.
Nicola. Clint. I can't say your last name. I don't want to mess it up. And J-Lott. Isn't the music the worst, guys? Scott loves it.
It's good.
So good. All right, we're just going to jump into it. King, do I say your whole name or do I just call you King? I know it's a translation.
King's fine.
Okay, that's going to be easier on me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Who are you? What do you do? And how do you get to Kansas City?
So, hi, everybody. My name is King Amfo. I'm from West Africa, Ghana originally. I ran a clothing, a fashion house, and a music production house. And what brought me to Kansas City is I'm an architecture major here at the University of Kansas. So I'm actually 45 minutes away from Kansas City, but I'm in the neighborhood. So that's what brings me here.
So, King, what originally brought you to the States and how did you choose the University of Kansas to study architecture?
Okay, so I love basketball, and the University of Kansas had a great basketball program. We just won our national championship this year. So, and they had a 5-year master's architecture program that a lot of schools didn't have at the time. And they were offering a lot of money scholarship-wise. So it was just a perfect it was just a perfect path to take during that time for me, for my brand, for my family, and for my bank account. So that was what really pulled us in to, move to this spot and, bring the brand from Ghana to America and in Kansas, to be exact.
And so where was the origin point for your business? Like, what was the aha moment? You're like, all right, I'm going to do this.
It was actually in 2016. The business is actually owned by me, my brother, and a friend that we went to high school with. We started off as a music production house where we had made a song, or actually we made a beat. There was this dude that came from the UK to our high school. He made beats. He taught us how to do it, and we made one beat. We took this beat to the studio, made a song on the beat just for fun, and the song blew up. So we're like, oh, this is catching weight. People are actually listening to this. People are actually rocking with this. And then after that song blew up, we had high schools call us and reach out to us. Hey, we'll pay you to perform here. Hey, we'll pay you to do this. We'll pay you to do that. So money started coming in. And then once the money started coming in, we decided to put that money into the clothing brand or clothing aspect of our business. And because we always loved fashion. So if the money was coming in, we had capital to start with. So we just moved all the capital into the fashion side. And every season we make a drop or a new collection or a fall, spring, winter collection. And that's really how it just took off. And we decided that we're going to do this.
How did your song blow up? What platform?
Apple Music. It actually blew up on, at the time, it wasn't TikTok. There was Vine and there was Instagram was there too. And I remember the catchphrase in the song is what people back home loved. It was like, they were going to take, you're going to pick up a girl in a public transportation and take her to not Miami Beach, but like a local cheap beach because you don't have no money. That was basically the idea around the song, and people just caught on it and they just loved the idea. So they just kept singing that chorus over and over and over again. And then it just became what it was.
You should put it back out on TikTok.
It's actually on Apple Music and everywhere now. We put it on Apple Music and all the online streaming platforms 3 years later, because we had no idea what, monetization or royalties were at the time. We were just kids in high school, just doing, just playing around. Yeah. So we put it on there 3 years later after the heat had kind of died down. We're like, oh, we could have capitalized on Apple Music and all other platforms too. But
did you write any other songs?
Yeah, so I'm a writer. I'm a songwriter myself. Because of that song, we got on Apple Music. We had our profiles down on Spotify, TikTok, Snapchat, wherever. If you just search Alpha Records or Alpha Gang Media on there, it'll pull up all our old stuff, stuff from back in 2016. So
Nice.
yeah.
Okay, and then I have one last question. How do you feel that you now go to a football school as well?
I know it's crazy. I never thought. I learned football when I came to KU because we don't play football. We play soccer, which is actually the original football back in Ghana. But yeah, I'm here for it. We're 5-1 now. We would have been 6-0, but we got some injured players, and that's okay. But we'll be back. We'll be back for sure.
But man, that place was empty on Saturdays when I went to school there.
Yep.
I'm very jealous. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Okay, Nick, who are you? What do you do? How do you get to Kansas City? And does everyone tell you have the best name? Nick Love.
Yeah, a lot of people like to talk about my last name for sure. Aaron, Scott, thank you guys for your time today as well and being on the podcast. I appreciate it. So who am I? I'm Nick Love. I am a graduating MD MBA student at KU Med, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Love Lifesciences. Love Lifesciences, we're developing a series of injection devices to improve the patient experience when chronic injection therapeutics are required for care. Things like insulin, injectable therapeutics in general. How did I get to KC? I was born and raised in Overland Park, so I've been here my entire life. Went to Blue Valley West for high school, KU for undergrad, and then KU for both my MD and MBA degrees.
So I named my son after you because I liked your name so much. His name is Fulk. So not trying to do a trend here. What was the aha moment? But it's, as an entrepreneur for a company, it's obviously very fresh. As you're growing it, what was the aha moment for your company? I feel like you almost have to have like a little bit of a calling or a background to jump into something like that.
Yeah. So I guess I'll kind of back that up a little bit for, my motivation for going into medicine in the first place. About 12 to 15 years ago, my mom was diagnosed with HER2 positive breast cancer. At the time, it was generally a death sentence. There wasn't really a cure for that type of cancer. And so after going to multiple physicians, she ended up at KU Med, and they entered her into a clinical studies for Herceptin. Herceptin is world renowned now, and it's a phenomenal therapeutic. That was my first kind of entry point into medicine and being in the hospitals, and it saved her life. So it was incredibly impactful to kind of be a part of that experience, kind of have that in my life. So that kind of initiated me down the track of going into healthcare. And when I was in undergrad, I started working in a medicinal chemistry lab, so doing some organic chemistry, developing pharmaceutics, and was working with Dr. Blake Peterson over there. And, I was at a conference and presenting some of my research, and actually got to meet the physician, Dr. Carol Fabian, who gave my mom the drug Herceptin. And that was a pretty phenomenal and really impactful experience for me. We got to talk about my research and everything that she was able to do for not only for my mom, but for my family. And so kind of moving on, I realized I really did want to go into medicine and ended up matriculating into KU Med. After about 2 years at KU Med, I decided I was going to take a gap year to get my MBA. And the time commitment between getting an MD and an MBA degree is drastically different. Generally, the MBA degrees give you some time to, go pursue other interests as well. And so I was working over at the pharmacy school. We were working with injectable therapeutics. And I had one of those pens, the multicolored pens with like red, blue, green, yellow that we've all probably used before. It was just kind of clicking it in my hand and thinking, it would be cool if you could put injectable therapeutics into a device that looked like this, maybe for kiddos or pediatric patients that might have needle phobias or are scared of injections. I wrote the idea down and didn't think much of it. And then a few weeks later, it kind of just popped into my head that if I could time gate access to each of those injections, I would effectively create the world's first pillbox organizer for injection medications. And our family has had experience with individuals accidentally overdosing on therapeutics. And it was a problem that was close to my heart and one that I realized needed to be solved and was completely preventable. So that was kind of the weird aha moment that started Love Lifesciences.
Kansas City is so small. So my grandmother retired early because she married older. My grandpa retired. And then she was bored. And she went and Dr. Fabian was her friend. So she's like, come work with me. So she went and was her assistant for a while and worked for Dr. Fabian for quite a while.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm curious if they ever got to meet my mom. Huh.
I don't know. She probably wouldn't tell me because of HIPAA.
Yeah, fair enough.
Ask your mom.
There's a little healthcare joke there. It's crazy. We've had 500 plus guests on the show, but I felt like that was one of the best. And now you're on Shark Tank, and it was really. I mean, lock that up and send it to Lily and James. Where's the future of your company going? I know there's a lot of R&D, a lot of testing, very capital intensive to get off the ground. Where are you in that process?
Yeah. So when I met my co-founder, Bradley, and kind of talked about multi-pin or multi-use device, the pillbox organizer for injections, all I had was a piece of paper with some drawings on it. And I have no engineering background. And so he goes, Nick, I think we can do something with this, but instead of targeting multiple injections, why not just do one first? And so we kind of drove down that path and started interviewing patients and physicians and figuring out what really was the problem with the injection experience. And so we developed Unipin, our single-use device. Unipin has completed R&D, and we're actually scaling manufacturing at the moment to initiate the FDA process for a medical device through the 510K pathway. Multi-pin, we have just completed our first functional prototype there. And last week submitted a secondary provisional patent on that device as well. Currently, we are raising funds on WeFunder.com. We have a Regulation CF running right now, which is doing phenomenal. And we are also looking at raising an additional $1 million to kind of jump onto the FDA processes and really getting things going once we scale manufacturing.
Man, you're about the smartest person I've ever met.
I get that entirely.
Cognios Capital off Tomahawk Creek in between Null and Mission is one of the few, if only, I think, private equity type medical companies in Kansas City. So fun food for thought if you go down that rabbit hole. Cognios Capital.
I'll definitely
write that down. All right, real quick, I want to say hi to Leah. She says, hey, watching from LinkedIn.
Leah, come on the show.
Leah. William with his sunglasses on and says he's watching on LinkedIn and he's excited to hear what Jay's got going on. And Gil just says, Jay. All right. Well, if you're watching, jump on here like Gil, William, and Leah and tell us who you are, where you're watching from, what you do. Lots of good business happens over there. Clint, you've been so quiet. It's your turn. Who are you? What do you do? How do you get to Kansas City?
Yeah, Clint Clevenger. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Next Move. We're a healthcare staffing firm down in the Crossroads. So love Lula's, fantastic place to get some food. Born and raised in Kansas City, Northlander originally, up in Kansas City, Missouri. Went to Oak Park, went to UMKC, was in the Army for a long time, and then the Army brought me back to Overland Park, and I've been here since 2009.
And Clint, I love it when Aaron's about to have a whoa moment, but I think you're the fastest growing or top 5 fastest growing companies in Kansas City. So give everyone a little background on your organization, what you do, and why you're going to be on the map in Kansas City these next 60, 90 days.
Yep. So company was founded in 2019 as a healthcare staffing firm. Then the pandemic hit, which for those of you who followed how that impacts healthcare staffing and demand for nurses and allied professionals to help support the pandemic, and the company had the opportunity to grow through that entire period. We're still growing. I think if you looked at our 3-year CAGR, it's something like 150% year over year consistently on our growth trajectory. So, we've doubled the size of our internal team in less than 10 months, and along with the clinicians on staff at the same time. So the next 90 days, some may have seen the Kansas City Business Journal article that we are moving to a new space, staying in the Crossroads, which is where we're at today. But we're going to be moving in to about 24,000 square feet of space over at the original Kansas City Star building at about 18th and Reedy.
That's why I was good. I love that building. Scott knows that. Hey, and now you're at 3 years, so you can do the Inc. 5000.
We can. We also will be one of the largest firms, probably top 25% in our industry by the end of the year as well. So things are going great.
So Aaron, for the audience, and then we'll ask another question. how can you hire firms to help you? So like if you're a busy executive like Clint is, and you have all this stuff, but you know you should be applying for these awards because you qualify for them. Like, do you just do the hard work? I know most people do it themselves, but are there people to reach out to that can do that for executives?
Most people don't do it themselves. I would say a lot of people don't do it themselves. They hire out just like they would anything else because it's a lot of questions and it's a lot of how you answer those questions, right? There's trending words and buzzwords and stuff like that the judges like to see. So yes, people you can hire out. I know a company, let me know. But I would say for anybody that's had a really great 3-year growth from start, that's the best time to do things like the Inc. because you're going from the zero number. You're never going to grow more than zero to where you are, right? Probably. I mean, maybe you could.
Yeah. No, Aaron, you're 100% right. So Clint, for you, what was I guess I'm going to stick with a trending question. What was the aha moment for you to join the company?
Yeah, the biggest aha moment for me was that I actually came from kind of industry leader. So I worked for the largest company in the industry for several years. We were acquired by them out of Kansas City. Did a lot of work there and decided that I really wanted to build something in Kansas City with a group who wanted to try and do something different and unique in our industry, and got connected with the founders here. They were looking for a chief operating officer to help them grow and kind of take the company to the next level. And the aha moment for me was the concept of creating raving fans for our organization, as described by our founders. And a raving fan is someone who is angry that they can't give you a 6 star because it's not an option on the rating, right? So how can you deliver that level of experience? And as you think about nurse burnout and the mental health impact that comes with the pandemic and overstressed workloads, it was, can you deliver an experience for clinicians that get them to want to continue providing care? You know, study just released by Bain yesterday that 25% of clinicians are looking to make a change or leave the workforce in the next year. And if we can make a sizable dent in that based on the experience we're able to provide people, that has meaningful impact and outcomes for patients, for their own livelihood, and for the clinicians who want to keep providing care for the reason that they came into the workforce.
Can I know the story behind the Marilyn Monroe picture? And have you seen the movie on Netflix yet?
I've seen the movie. This was in my office when I moved in. I haven't This is also my 3rd office in this building, and I started in November. So we've been playing a little bit of office Tetris. So my office keeps getting smaller and smaller as we need the space.
Hey, you're the chief operating officer. Come on.
We make.
I mean, you can have your office the first.
You're a servant leader. Yeah.
100%. That's why we need the other space to get built out.
Well, I'm so jealous. I have loved that building forever and ever and ever. So I'm coming to visit whether you like it or not. All right, Nick says he's watching on LinkedIn. And now we're going to give the fans what they want. Jay, who are you? What do you do? How do you get Kansas City?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you for having me, everybody. First, I want to say, I think it was Nick. That was a cool story. Really enjoyed hearing it, and thanks for sharing, because a lot of people, a lot of families are impacted by cancer, like my family especially. So sometimes it's still even hard for me to talk about. But that's so cool what you're doing. But yeah, so my name is Jay Lott. I'm a sales director here at C2FO for our capital finance division. So what we do here is our goal is to give convenient, low cost capital to people so that they can thrive. You know, that's what we're passionate about over here. How did I get to Kansas City? I've been in Kansas City for about, call it 27 years now. My family moved here from Chicago in 1995. Grew up in a great neighborhood that Scott Havens knows all too well. Went to awesome schools. Yeah, awesome schools that Scott knows all too well. And also big shout out to Scott because he was a few years older than us. And everyone who knows him knows that he's the socialite. So he was made for all of this. You know, he connects people and that's been something that I've noticed for so long.
So Jay, you do a lot of work in the community and you're a business owner as well. But first answer, when you started at the company, how big was it? And then today, how big is it? And then second question is, tell us about the work that you've been doing in 18th and Vine.
Yeah, cool. So when I first came to C2FO, I came over from Sprint. I feel like Sprint was the Cerner before Cerner was Cerner in Kansas City. So cool short story. I met someone that had just started working at C2FO at the neighborhood mailbox. And so from there, I interviewed at C2FO, and I've been here for the past 7 years. So when I first got to the company, I think I was employee 60 to 70-ish, maybe even lower than that. Now I think we're at the point where we're close to 800 globally. So I've seen quite a transition over the course of the past 7 years. And then I'm starting to scratch the surface in terms of community work, because I think that's one of my bigger passions in life now. Now that, for one, growing up in a predominantly white area where there's little minorities, my purpose, my goal is to help other people that not only look like me, but just help everybody feel included in anything that they do. So I want to be involved in 18th and Vine in that area. Gotten some good opportunities alongside my father. If you guys haven't seen The Soul of Santa, here's a shameless plug. Every Christmas, the first Saturday in December, there's a Christmas tree lighting on the corner of 18th and Vine next to Soiree. It's called the Soul of Santa Christmas Tree Lighting Event. That's something that we put on along with the community breakfast the following Saturday, where we serve, hundreds, thousands of families over the course of the last few years. And we also, last year, my wife and I put a boutique together. So anytime for the community that comes that Saturday for the breakfast, we have a lot of clothes for kids ages, from infancy all the way up to 3 or 4 to 6, whatever our donations provide. People come there and clothe their babies. So it's just some good things that I've been able to be a part of the last few years, and so just happy to do that. Happy to help other people out.
Do you have Santa at that event?
Yes. So Soul of Santa, if you can Google it, you can YouTube it. My dad comes in there dressed in his red suit and his red hat.
Santa comes.
But not the real Santa. No, I mean,
yeah,
not the traditional.
I got toddlers, okay? I got it.
No, look it up, man. It's so cool to see, because you see all sorts of walks of life. We're so used to a Santa looking a certain way, but Santa can be whoever you want it to be at the end of the day.
Well, I thought that's the reason I wanted to ask that question, is because I don't know if you guys know India. She's been on the show before, but she owns Fresh Factory in Zona Rosa. And she was really intentional last year of having an event where they had a Black Santa, and it was a hit, right? Mm-hmm. And that was the only one that I saw any marketing, like a lot of stuff out about. And so it made sense to me when everybody showed up. So that's why I wanted to get that information out too, because it was popular.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, and we know each other, so I had no idea that you did that.
Yeah, man.
But I didn't know the boutique.
Oh,
there was the breakfast, and that it was the first Saturday in December. So it's a great shout out.
Yeah, because last year, or the past 2 years, I think, COVID obviously impacted some of it, but we do the breakfast at the Negro Leagues Museum, and this year we might do it, Aaron, at 2020 or 2000 Vine.
MySpace.
Oh yeah.
Where my office is, not MySpace, but where my office is. That's a good space to do it at.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Beats by the Ballpark is coming up at October 20th at 18th and Vine.
There's a lot of stuff. If you haven't been down in that area yet, there's a lot of stuff going on down there. A lot of good stuff going down there. Okay, listen. If you are just tuning in, I watch these numbers, so I know there's a lot more people on here than earlier. Tell us who you are, what you do, you tell us who you are, what you do. Are you watching us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube? Where are you watching us? We want to meet you. Now we're going to play the Burns and McDonnell question of the day. And King, as soon as she's done, you're going to jump in with your answer. You ready? All right, here we go.
Hi, I'm Sunitha Levin, and I work at Burns & McDonnell, helping advance telecommunications across the U.S. My question for today is, how do you manage your time, and how much is it worth to you?
I had to mute you because you unmuted and it comes back.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure that out. how do I manage time? Is very important to me personally because I'm doing so many things, especially as a student and an entrepreneur, a young entrepreneur. So I draw a schedule and try as hard as possible to follow that schedule. I also schedule my classes in such a way that I have all my school stuff between 8 a.m. and 12 noon. So afternoon, between 12 noon and 6, or the rest of the day, I have enough time to do all the other activities that I need to do to make our business a success.
God, you're responsible.
You know, it's kind of unique about King, and Jay mentioned about an opportunity to go on a rocket ship of a company at a mailbox. A lot of people that we meet on the show, I meet in commuting, and King and I got in the same car in between our event. So food for thought, and those transactions where you're riding in a car with someone or you're at the mailbox, that time is valuable when connecting with others. So Nick, what about yourself?
Yeah, so my answer might make a lot of people upset. I'm an Android user, not an iPhone guy. I know. And so I use Google Calendars actually to make sure my schedule is put together pretty well. You know, for a while it was pretty difficult for me to schedule out things 3, 4, 5 weeks in advance, but it's just become the norm now with everything between finding time to exercise in the mornings before going into the hospital, and then, you know, working on the business basically the moment I get out of the hospital until I go to bed at 2, 3 in the morning.
Right.
You're young, Nick. It's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. But eventually you gotta sleep. Eventually you gotta sleep.
That's
Until
something.
you're my age, that turns into 10, 2, 3 in the morning. You can't do anymore. So do it now.
Exactly.
Get it on now.
Yep.
How about you, Clint?
Clint?
Man, the first thing that came to mind was poorly. When you're, you know, we're in the process of adding so many people and so many different things that we're trying to put in place that it's a little bit of jumping from one thing to the next, and it's the best you can do. But I thought the portion of the question that was really interesting was how much is your time worth to you? And not so much in monetary terms, but in terms of I measure how we spend our time in our business and where I spend my time based on the impact it has on our people and the impact it has on the business. So when I think about managing it, I manage it through priority of where can I add the most value to someone or something that we have going on at the end of the day.
And for context, how many people work with you at your organization?
Yeah, we've got 65 internal folks, and then we've got about 300 clinicians currently on engagement across the country.
So for reference, time management is lots of commerce for Clint. And so we really appreciate you taking time to be on the show with us today while managing
This is great.
those three. Yeah, it's a good break. It's a good break. Jay, what about yourself with everything that you have going on? How do you use your time?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. I think time is one of the most valuable assets that you can't get back. So every second, every minute of the day, it has to count. It has to matter. But the past 2 years, you know, we have a toddler, a 2-year-old. So for all the new parents, if you have the answers on how to manage time, help me, give me some insight. But no, I mean, I stick to what's important. I stick to my family first, and then business. You know, and then obviously I'll get my alone time in there sometime if it's going to the gym. You know, I'm trying to manage it to the best of my ability, but I think that's an ongoing lesson at this point in time.
Aaron, how do you manage your time? Because you run your own business and running 2 teenagers around.
Yeah. Well, so I calendar block, like a no negotiable calendar block. And also I do know my monetary hourly time. And if it's not worth that, or if I can pay somebody less than that, then I outsource. So how about you?
There you go. I was more interested in the audience question that came in because I'm a business nerd, kind of like you were geeking out on social media.
You're not in charge of questions. That's my job. I asked you a question. How do you manage your time?
Because I run 11 peer groups, so booking things in advance. So my biggest time is Sunday around 5 to 6, and then 5 a.m. Monday. So I wake up 5 a.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But because everything's planned so far in advance, it's kind of just like everyone on the show. It's kind of like show up, lights, camera, action. So for me, it's overly communicating.
I make him answer that question because we've had that question before and you skipped it, and I wanted our audience to hear. So I wasn't yelling at you, but I just wanted you to answer it. All right, I'll ask this audience question over here. It's going to cover your faces for a second. I'll take it right back down, okay? I promise. Otherwise, you can look over it. Oh, it changed. The platform changed. Question for Jay. Just wondering if how the recent interest rate hikes have impacted your team's ability to provide capital to companies in need.
Yeah. So obviously, with interest rates rising, they've risen for many people who lent out money as well. With us, it hasn't really impacted our business because we're an alternative lender. So what that allows for us to do is give people one of two things that they need the most, which is, and most important, is adequate access to capital. So we pride ourselves on being a collateral lender to match the collateral that they have. A lot of traditional lenders, especially as it pertains to small business, they see that these businesses are growing and they cheer them on from the sidelines, but they never accommodate their needs. And so while we know we're not a bank pricing from like a lending standpoint, we do know that we can give adequate access to capital that these businesses need to grow for a period of time before they can go back to becoming a bankable company, which is getting adequate capital at the best rate out there as well.
I have a question to piggyback off that, just as a small business owner. I have recently noticed, like, we're on Stripe, right? And I've recently noticed with the different payment portals that they're now pushing small business loans, and you just pay back through your sales. Has that become a competitor at all of you guys yet?
No. Are you referring to like a merchant cash advance or anything like that? A specific product?
Yeah, they're calling them small business loans though when they market them.
Yeah. So sometimes, it's not really that's going down market for us. So it's not really something that disrupts our business. But what you do see with smaller businesses who just get like a line of credit is sometimes the bank will over collateralize those businesses, meaning giving them X amount of cash where in all actuality, they probably need 2 or 3 times more of that. And so then these small businesses also end up getting locked into those credit agreements or any agreement for an extended period of time that hinders their growth.
Right. I've just noticed Stripe is all of a sudden pushing it all the time, right? Because we've been with Stripe for years. So I didn't know if that would do that. All right. King, I do have a question for you. Because you had your success before you moved here, correct?
Correct. Yes.
What has been the difference that you've seen running a business in Ghana versus running a business in Lawrence, Kansas?
It's a larger market out here in the United States. So, and the target audiences are different because we were using lingos that our people understand. We both speak English, but then when it comes to like speaking broken English or like street language, we could say terms that are not going to be understood in America. So that switch of culture is what that was my biggest cultural shock to me, just adjusting to the new market. So I had to, when I moved, I actually didn't start immediately. I had to study the market for about 2 years or 2.5 years first before having my first pop-up shop here with merchandise that's going to meet the market here in Lawrence, Kansas, especially because I was in a college town. So if the college isn't available, my target market kind of reduces because Lawrence, Kansas it's like a quiet town without the college,
Right.
So yeah.
So your CC. So are you doing much in Kansas City, or are you just sticking to that seasonality?
We've actually branched out because we actually have an online store. So we ran a lot of ads on social media, and this has enabled us to reach Kansas City, Overland Park, New York, New Jersey. We have reps in Houston, Dallas. So just building friendships and connecting with people has helped us, have reps in different parts of America with different markets that fit our market here in Lawrence, Kansas. So
you need to get in with those from a marketing point of view. This is my one free piece of I'm not going to charge you my hourly rate that I was talking about. You need to make friends with those basketball players that you know are going to go to the NBA and get in good, like Community America did with Mahomes, right? Where they lock them in and then they become the face of your brand. There
so
you go.
I lived with ball players for about
Oh, you're on it.
3 years. I lived with them for about 3 years. Became friends with most of them. So I have friends. I have acquaintances, I'd say, who've been drafted or who are overseas now. So it's just we're trying to pick the right, athlete to represent the brand and who would also, because I'm being honest, when these athletes get there, they really want to stick with the bigger brands. They're like, oh yeah, we know King.
That's why you got to get in early.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
listen.
the unique thing about studying the brand on the market, I think it's great advice because a lot of people jump into your business. And when you look at a guy that I golf a lot with, he does Charlie Hustle. And he, when they look at markets to go into, they're looking at Ames, Iowa. They're looking at Tulsa. And then not only that, but studying the market just like you did, because people just think you can jump into anywhere, but if it doesn't have meaning behind it or your brand, I just didn't realize how important market research. I know it's like okay, everyone should know that, but I really don't think people take the time to spend years like you've done to understand it.
Yeah.
And I've heard, and this is just a Midwest thing, so there's probably an alternative to this, but I have heard if you see a Quick Trip breaking ground, they've done that research. Quick Trip's so good in the Midwest at doing the research of what areas are about to really pop, that you always want to do business where you see a Quick Trip breaking ground.
I think I also learned as I went through the process in terms of like research, because we dropped stuff a year and a half after I'd been here, and then looking at the numbers and looking at the reactions, it wasn't doing what we thought it would do because it did that back home. So just kind of learning as you go through the process and just making adjustments and not being afraid to try the next move because the first one's not working.
Good. That's good advice. And we actually have this question here, and I think you kind of answered it. And I'd like to hear Nick's answer on it too, since he's a young entrepreneur. But what's some advice you would give to other young entrepreneurs wanting to start their own businesses while in school? Because you guys are both doing that. That's a lot of work, guys. Good job.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I think the first thing is, depending on what you're going to school for, start writing down the problems that you're seeing in that career field that you're going to go into. I've met countless physicians that say, how did you come up with this idea? I've never even thought about creating something like this. And I go, well, name the top 10 problems you experience every single day in the hospital, and I bet you have a solution for one of those. And so people just don't think to write down the problems that they're facing and then the possible solutions as well. I think once it's down on paper, it's a lot easier to take action on. And it's not just a thought kind of floating around in your head. So that would be my biggest advice.
I like that. King, do you got one piece of really fire advice?
Don't be scared. Just if you feel it, when you have that gut feeling, just hop in and do it.
All right, Clint, I have a question for you. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
So you went from the Army, which I think of the Army is a very disciplined place to be, to becoming a COO who seems to be very, very people focused, right? So how much are you bringing from your Army experience into your COO? And what things have you had to teach yourself? Like, oh, maybe we don't need to be that disciplined in this position.
Yeah. So I think it's a popular misconception for somebody that comes from a military background to think that everything is very rigid. In that way, I think I probably had a lot of leaders that I worked for in the Army that said I was not a good soldier in that way. But in the way that the Army is a lot about frameworks and just having good decision-making frameworks to make decisions within, not being told what to do necessarily. They teach you very much to learn how to make your own decisions because you have to at any given time. But it's definitely, I had to learn the mix of people that you need to make an organization work is so much different than what you experience in the Army. There's a lot of alphas in the Army. It's filled with everybody who's, how do I get promoted as fast as possible at any given time? Where I'm at now is not ever good enough. and I need to get to the next level. And I was shocked when I made my first transition to realize there are people that are totally content to be in whatever role they want to be in, very long term. And they become really, quite frankly, I think the lifeblood of a lot of companies. And as I've looked around, I did a lot of work doing M&A in a previous life. And as you looked inside those companies, you always found these people that were like the critical linchpin. They had been there a decade, not a lot of upward growth, but just really great at what they did. They knew everything about the way the company worked, and were really linchpin people, but didn't have any desire to run the organization at the end of the day. And that was an adjustment for me to recognize that, like, it's not that they're not motivated or want to do those things. It's that they're happy in doing what they do.
That's such a good point.
It's really hard to grasp and understand, and you either have it or you don't. And I just think, back to the point of you being in charge of hundreds of people on a daily basis, you kind of have to meet them where they are. I'm horrible at it. That's why I can't. I have really good partners, but you're taking care of over 100 people's lives and their car payments and what they're saving for their college. So it's probably unique. Yeah. What happens every Monday at 8 a.m. when your doors open.
We had a really kind of one of those milestone moments in company history last week, and we rolled out the first set of mission and values for the organization to our entire internal team, right? And one of the things is I had an all hands all leaders meeting. Anybody who manages a person in our organization with that. And one of the things I impressed upon them was, you are now responsible as a leader for someone's career, for their own development. And so you owe it to them, if you're going to take that responsibility, to do everything you can to help them achieve whatever their goals are at the end of the day.
You know what I think would be really interesting, Jay, you kind of have a similar path, but you're ahead, right, of where their company is, where you started when there were, and then I looked at your LinkedIn, I looked at everybody's LinkedIn beforehand, and you've had quite a few different roles, it looks like, within C2FO. So you've been one of the ones that wanted to. So from the employee side, right, what has been the most impactful part of when your managers have been trying to figure out what your career looked like? What's been the most kind of impactful things that you've done to help you figure that out?
I don't know if it's like one singular person or not, but within C2FO, this has been my experience.
Not trying to profile who's got the phone here.
I got it under control.
Okay.
Yeah. So without there's not been one specific person, but it's been a collective group of individuals. From my experience being here at C2FO over the years, is anytime anyone has been curious and wanted to learn and wanted to grow, the opportunity has been there. Like everyone, no one can be like singled out or anything like that. But if you lead with curiosity, if you show that you want to grow, you show you want to improve, like there's opportunity here at C2FO for you. That has been my experience, and I continue to tell everybody that. It's been awesome because of the 7 years. I've just continued to see the opportunity. I want to continue to lead people because I've been blessed to have leaders above me that have taken me in, and so that's just something that I'm passionate about. It's kind of similar to what Clint just said. It's your responsibility. It's your duty. If someone shows you that they want to learn, they want to grow, uplift them. That's the most single important thing you can do. And quite frankly, at the end of the day, like, it takes a village. We're better together. We're better. A group of people is much stronger than a single individual, and the sooner people realize that, the better not only companies are, but the world will be as well. Firm believer in that.
How tough is it for you to navigate being an employee, but then also having your entrepreneurial stuff, right? Because there's a lot of companies out there that you can't be open about your side hustle or whatever people call it, right? But I feel like everyone I know at C2FO is pretty open about it. So I guess it's probably part of your guys' culture of just being, real motivated in everything you do. But what does that navigation look like?
Yeah, well, our leader, Sandy, tells you every single day, tells everybody to think like as if they're owners of the company and have an entrepreneurial mindset. I think that's the type of mindset you should have when you just go about life. So there's no, I'm not fully dedicated or fully doing something on the side that disrupts what I do here. But it's also just figuring out what the question was earlier, time and balance and how to coordinate all of that.
Right.
I feel like with the pandemic, it just skyrocketed what everyone does. They've realized kind of the ROI on their time. I know, my wife was in the car. She was in the North Campus and we lived further south, but she was in the car on average like 10 hours a week. And because of traffic time, but our commute to get to this meeting was, putting on a shirt, so it's like, there's just so much time to get back in the day if you have a flexible schedule. And then Clint, how do you handle the in office, out of office, hybrid? What is kind of your policy?
We're hybrid. Generally about 3 days a week is the target for folks coming into the office, and 2 days a week remote, but really trying to be a values driven organization versus mandating by policy. So the goal is to have flexibility for our folks. It's important. I've got 2 kids myself, so I know there are going to be, it's hockey season and I have 2 hockey players. So I know there are going to be Fridays that I'm taking calls, driving to Waterloo, Iowa to go play hockey games. So if you're going to expect that flexibility as an executive, you certainly got to give it to your team. And that's what a lot of folks want. But we have a lot of people in our office that love coming into the office. We've built a pretty strong in-office culture that's collaborative. People like coming here, like who they get to interact with, and we focus on who we bring into the organization to keep creating that, to create that vibe that they want to be here. And when we move to the new building, we'll have a really sweet space they'll want to come to the office more often.
That's awesome.
All right, Scott. You know what time it is. You know what I'm going to do.
Can I ask one quick question? Because you're going to like it.
Yeah.
So we were talking about, I don't know if it was before the show or during the show, we were talking about the culture of the theater parents and children that Aaron's involved in. Now, I'm a wannabe theater parent, and I'm also, I don't think I'm going to do it just because, man, you got to be really committed, but educate the audience on the hockey culture. I'm so jealous of it, but like all the parents hang out, all the kids hang out. Jay and I got to see it from afar. We didn't play hockey, but we got to see some friends of ours being there. But tell us about the Kansas City hockey culture.
It is one of the most tight-knit communities I've ever seen. So if you've got a youngin that might be interested in hockey, people give away gear to make sure kids can get it, because it's not a cheap sport to get involved in for certain. But on the weekend at a hotel, those kind of experiences the kids and families get where they hang out in rooms and get to do stuff like that at a young age is something that they love. My daughter just got back from Omaha this weekend and had this great experience. She plays on an all-girls tournament team, and she's 9, and it was, the highlight of her weekend, so to speak. Between that community, and I sit on the board of Debate Kansas City, which is a nonprofit here in Kansas City, focusing on debate for KCMO, KCK public schools primarily. Those 2 communities I run into people, and they instantly are your new friends at the end of the day.
Always, I'll jump into the question, but literally, it's like someone's not wanting to do a meeting. You're like, oh, they're a hockey parent. They're like, oh, you should have told me that. It's like, oh, you're the theater parent. It's like, so it's really interesting. So everyone's kind of a go-getter on this panel.
Short answers. We only have a few minutes left.
It's a hard-hitting question, but I hope you are cool with it. But we all need to improve, and January is kind of that time where you think to yourself, what do I want to do differently? Part of peer groups and other successful folks is kind of challenging people at the end of the year to close the year strong. So, King, what is something you feel like you need to be better at?
Patience. I feel like once I set my mind on something, if doing it now doesn't work, I still want to do it now instead of pushing it to, say, the next day or the day after. I just lump my days up. So patience is something I want to get better at.
Nick, what is one thing that you're not that good at and you want to get better at, or you just want to improve on?
Gosh, I think the one thing I want to improve on is networking. I think for the longest time, I've been in the sciences and healthcare space, and my network is pretty limited here in Kansas City. So definitely looking to expand that quite a bit.
And Drinks with Leaders is the perfect place to do it.
That's what I'm here for.
And in my experience, business and medical world, they don't cross very often. You have to be very intentional of doing that.
Exactly.
So I think you are in the right circles now. We got you.
Perfect.
All right, Clint, what about yourself? What are things that you feel you can do better at? I mean, you got so much on your plate and you got like kiddos, so it's got to be a lot.
Yeah, it's time management. Earlier in the show, if I can figure out the right amount of delegation to create more creative time in my day, prioritizing what needs to get done versus what really isn't that important at the end of the day, more work on that always makes better use of time. So one commodity we can't have more of.
And I'll just say, as a quick side question, Aaron and Clint, are there services where you have people that like answer your emails for you just because as business owners, there's so much coming in? Like, is that something that's popular with CEOs and executives?
For me, yeah, we're in the process of mapping out having someone come in-house to help support the executive team this year, to help challenge some of that for certain. Just that can respond to stuff that you don't really need to respond to and clean through is a huge benefit if you have the right person that you feel comfortable in your inbox getting that done.
God, that's called a personal assistant.
Hey, I didn't want you to get mad at me if I call it a personal assistant.
No, I mean, it's I've seen a big shift of where a lot of my clients have virtual assistants. So they just use maybe 10 hours a week, right? And so just for that kind of stuff of sorting through the inbox and not necessarily doing all the little things like go get me coffee, but just the like kind of that stuff that there's some really organized people, and usually entrepreneurs aren't them.
Clint, are you in the final stages of interviews on that?
No, we're just getting ready to prep exactly what we're going to bring on. But to be frank, we really want someone that can keep us on task and organized. When you've got every department for a large organization, you need somebody to remind you, follow up with this person to make sure that gets done if that needs to come from you. So we're trying to find a high level person that's could be in there reading our board notes, and we know they can keep that confidential.
Yeah, it takes a lot of trust. Virtual assistants are very popular in Dan's circles of business owners, especially ones overseas that can work while you sleep. Oh, that's smart. Dan the man. All right, Jay, how about you? Do you remember the question?
What's something you need to get better at?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Time management. And then I would say like the most successful people that I've been around have always been very like consistent, like 365 consistent. And so sometimes I'm like 300 consistent. So I want to be able to improve time management and be consistent at everything I do.
How about you, Scott?
Dan, huge supporter of the show, so great shout out. And then obviously Clint, what I wanted to highlight is holy moly, I hope a listener's listening, because that sounds like the job opportunity of a lifetime for a young person to be at one of the fastest growing companies and to sit there and get a front row seat. It's not about the money, it's about the experience. But no, I have great partners. Aaron, you and I are partners. And so I have so many great partners that I don't have to do adult stuff. So my job is I just plan everything and I can communicate on it. And, I'm an inch deep and a mile wide on purpose. So my way of my time is that. But I think to get better is more of Jay's is, not 365 days, but, trying to do 300. So I'm really bad Friday, I'm not good on Fridays. So what about, Aaron, what do you want to close the show with, outside of Bank of Blue Valley and Burns and Mac?
I was going to tell you mine. my 2023 goal to get better. Because I broke my leg and fell down the stairs and just didn't want to put on makeup every day after that. I'm usually really good at putting out content, and we are seeing a direct correlation between bringing on clients and my content. So I have a very aggressive content goal for 2023. Get ready to see a lot of Aaron Fulk. All right, here's the deal. Thank you so much to our panel. Dan said it best. He said, great show all around. Bravo. Thank you so much to our panel. Everybody but King, because I couldn't find your LinkedIn. Are you on LinkedIn, King?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, actually.
All right, put it in the comments. Put it in the comments, okay? Everybody else is tagged. Go connect with them, follow them, encourage them. Just do awesome things while they're doing that. Thanks to Baker Blue Valley and Burns & McDonnell for sponsoring the show. Thanks for co-hosting with me, Scott. We'll see you same time, same place next week. Bye-bye.